Another real estate agent in a blazer and high heels walked right across my field, while I sipped my morning coffee on my porch. She looked like she owned the place. A young couple was following her, and she smiled and pointed at my barn as if it were part of her sales pitch. "Hey, get off my land. This is private property," I yelled, but the real estate agent just waved quickly, as if I were a friendly neighbor, and kept going. After that, I saw something. She wasn't going back to the road because she had a for sale sign in her hand. Instead, she drove the sign into my ground with a hammer. My heart was beating so fast I could scare my chickens with how angry I was. I walked over to them. The couple looked lost. The real estate agent smiled at me, as if I were a regular person in the area. Then she said something that almost made me drop my coffee. "This lot is now part of the HOA community. You have been added. If you attach it, I can sell it." Without asking me first? I was shocked as I stared at her. This land was mine and no one else's for years, so it couldn't be taken, right? Then I saw 3 more signs sticking out from near my fence. None of them had my name on them. There were signs that said, "Available lot in Magnolia Bluffs HOA. Call Jenny for a tour." I ripped one off the ground and told the woman, "You're trespassing, and I don't want anyone selling my land." She smiled coldly and said, "Well, that's for the HOA board to decide, not you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my neighbor Paul sent me a message on my phone. "Hey man, there's a flyer going around saying your property is part of the new Magnolia Bluffs expansion plan." I knew it wasn't just some nosy real estate agent when they said, "Thought you knew." It was a planned takeover, and they already had buyers. Let me take you back to the beginning of all this chaos. My name is Clint, and I lived here before the signs, the trespassers, and I even knew about the Magnolia Bluffs HOA. For the past 15 years, I've lived on this 12-acre ranch outside of Austin, Texas. I'm a former soldier in my mid-50s. I built this barn myself, and it's very peaceful here. There are goats, chickens, and a porch with a great view of the hills at sunset. After my wife died, I moved here. It gave me peace and quiet, a place to heal and be alone with my thoughts. When Lucy is home from college, she comes to visit and helps out around the ranch. As an added bonus, my friend Paul and his wife Marie live just down the road. Nice people. At first, everything was quiet and peaceful. But then Magnolia Bluffs, a new neighborhood, sprung up about a mile away. I didn't think much of it at first. Big, shiny homes all painted the same color, with SUVs in every yard and kids dressed in tennis clothes that match. HOA living? Not my thing. After that, they built a sidewalk that stopped right on my property line. Following a few weeks, I saw more and more people walking their dogs close to my fence. Some people even let their kids get close enough to my goats to pet them. At first, it didn't bother me much until someone left the gate open, and my animals crossed the road. There was a new "Do Not Enter" sign, but it was gone the next day. "These HOA people think they own everything they can see," Paul said. "Watch your back," he said seriously. It started out small. I started getting flyers in my mailbox about new country lots. One of the drawings on the flyers looked a lot like my barn. I didn't pay attention to it. We thought it was a writing mistake. Then, one night while I was fixing my fence, I saw a man in a suit walking along the property line with a clipboard and taking pictures. When I asked him what he was doing, he said he was with the HOA's planning department and had permission to look at possible growth lots. What kind of permission is that? That's not what I signed. He smiled and told me. The HOA board did. That's when I knew something was very wrong. The next morning, I called the county office. They couldn't find any records of changes to the zones. These people thought that my land was still private ranch land. Who told them they could sell my land? After a few days, things got worse. 3 women in real estate jackets and heels pulled up to my house in a white SUV. They were taking pictures of my mailbox, barn, and front porch. "You should cut down the thistles before we start showings," one of them waved. "Looks good from the street." I yelled, "This isn't for sale." They laughed. Then came the posts on social media. For example, Instagram pages showed that high-end ranch life would soon be available in Magnolia Bluffs, with pictures of my own ranch. They put up pictures of my old Chevy truck, my barn, and even my pond. It looked like they already had it. One night, Paul and I sat on my porch and read through his phone's posts. He shook his head and told Clint, "You need to hire a lawyer. This is theft, not just trespassing anymore." I agreed. Something else happened, though, before I could call a lawyer. After going to the feed store on a Saturday afternoon, I came home to see a couple leaving my barn. The man was carrying a brochure, and the woman looked around and said, "Wow, it looks even better in real life than in the pictures." I yelled them, "What are you doing here?" "A woman named Jenny told us the gate would be open," the man said. "We'd like to make an offer." I yelled. He blinked in confusion. "On this land. The one marked as Lot 37B in Magnolia Bluffs Ranch Estates." That's when I thought it was over. When I got to their car, I told them straight out that they had been lied to. Their feet were on my land, which wasn't for sale, and my gate wasn't open. They said sorry and quickly drove off, but the problem didn't end there. Someone put a sign on my gate that said, "Open house this Sunday that night. Bring your boots." There was also a QR code that led to a website with pictures of my land, and a $1.4 million price tag. At the very bottom of the flyer it says, "Private land HOA approved viewing by appointment only. Contact Jenny M." I was so angry I could barely stand. Jenny M was new to me, but I was about to learn more about her. I went right to the Magnolia Bluffs HOA office in the morning. That person, Jenny M, or the head of real estate, was who I asked to talk to. The front desk worker smiled like I had just asked for the Queen of England and said, "Oh, she's out showing homes this morning. She'll be back around noon." I waited. I wasn't going to leave until I talked to her. Right on time at noon, a tall woman in a navy blue suit walked in with a strut. She wore sunglasses. She smiled a little less when she saw me. She told him, "You must be Clint." "You know who I am," I told her. "You've been breaking my rules by taking shots of my ranch and selling it as if it were yours." She didn't even blink. "It's all part of the plan for the HOA to grow. Your home is in the area we mapped. You'll be paid." "What does that mean?" "It's not for sale." She gave me a strange look. "That's something the board should talk about, not today." I stood up and told them clearly, "You and your people are in the wrong place. You are not welcome." "I do not agree." Jenny smiled. "I'll call the police if you come back to my ranch." She then gave me a letter from the HOA telling me to stop messing with their business and said, "Then maybe you should call him now." I need to take a moment to ask you something. What would you do if someone tried to sell your house, land, barn, or memories without your permission? In the comments, let me know where you're watching from. The fight is just beginning. As I walked off their shiny HOA porch with the letter telling them to stop, I saw 3 cars already parked in my field. I walked right into the next open house that had just started. As I stomped across the field toward the strangers who were on my land, the sun beat down hard on my back. Along the edge of my pond, 3 SUVs were stopped in a way that made it look like they owned the area. A group of well-dressed people were sitting near the barn, drinking bottled water and talking as if they were on a weekend trip to a resort. A guy with aviator sunglasses looked at my windmill and told the others, "Oh, that'll look great. It feels real, you know." I didn't even think twice. "This is private property." I yelled. "You are all trespassing." Everyone turned around at once and blinked like a rabbit caught in the headlights. Some of them were even polite enough to look ashamed. Some people just looked unhappy. "Well, that's not very welcoming," said a woman in a sundress. After that I saw her. Jenny M. had a clipboard in her hand and was smiling like she had just gotten away with a theft. "Jenny," I yelled as I closed the gap between us. My boots hit the dry ground hard as I did so. "I told you yesterday to stay off my land," she said with a smile, as if we were old friends arguing about yard hedges. "Now, Clint, all of this is a mistake. Our community overlay plan has you on it. The people seen have every right to be there." I yelled. "I never signed anything. This ranch is mine, not a cover in your store. After that, Jenny carefully pulled out a folded piece of paper and gave it to me. This document was actually filed last month, she said. The HOA asked for all properties next to Magnolia Bluffs that are within 3 miles to be softly annexed. The deal says that your parcel will be taken into account in the negotiations. That gives us the right to show. As I read the letter, my hands were shaking. It had a lot of legal terms in it, like intent to acquire, shared zoning interests, and public utility projections. But at the bottom of the page, there was a name that wasn't mine but was someone else's. It was sloppy, but it was enough to make people who didn't know me confused. This is fraud, I yelled. Jenny just shrugged. That's a case for the courts. Please don't bother the tour for now. I heard someone behind me say, "Excuse me, sir," before I could say anything else. The owner was said to be away at the time. Isn't that true? When I turned around, I saw a young man in khakis holding hands with a woman who was looking around tensely. Even though his voice was quiet, I could tell that he was confused by the look in his eyes. They were buyers, but they didn't know what they were doing. No one is allowed to be here, I said slowly. I am the owner. Not the real estate agent, not the HOA, and not you. He looked like he was going to say sorry, but Jenny cut him off with her charm. Clint, these people just want to find a nice place to live. Don't let this happen to them. Be polite. I went up to her, pulled the for sale sign out of the ground again, and threw it on the back of her SUV. Get off my land. The buyers backed away and said sorry. Jenny just cocked her head and said in a soft voice, "This won't end the way you think it will." She then got in her car and drove off, leaving the rest of her group following behind like ducks. That night, Paul and I sat on my porch and looked over all the papers I had on the land, including the deed, the zoning paperwork, tax forms, and more. Everything was done in my name. There are no liens or co-signers, so there's no way for a HOA to just walk in and take over. They faked your signature, Paul told me as he handed me a cold beer. That is illegal. Yeah, I replied. But they'll keep coming until I prove it. He leaned back. Prove it quickly, before they sell your living room for nothing. The next morning, I went right to the sheriff's office. I told them what was going on and showed them the fake letter. Deputy Daniels, a rough man in his 60s who had known me for a long time, shook his head. Looks like someone's pulling strings at the HOA. These soft annexation plans are new tricks, legal gray areas. But forged signatures? That's a real crime, he said. HOA has money and lawyers. This won't be quick. I went home thinking that maybe, just maybe, they'd back off now that the police were involved. I was wrong. It had been 3 days since the event. I was feeding the goats near the barns when I heard a loud crack, like something breaking. I sprinted toward the noise. It was there. The heavy wooden front gate I built myself was ripped right off its springs. Along the fence line, a group of workers in bright vests were putting up stakes and ropes. Tire tracks cut through the gravel to get to the edge of my driveway. I yelled, "Hey." One man looked up and asked, "What are you doing?" "Land prep. We're surveying for the new Magnolia Bluffs trail extension." I stopped moving. His eyes went to a folder that was stuck to the side of their pickup truck and asked, "Trail? Who gave permission for this?" There was a permit inside that said, "Temporary Work Authorization, Magnolia Bluffs HOA." At the bottom, I had faked my name again. That's when I lost it. I sped up to the truck, pulled out the pass, and showed it to the movers. "You're on private land, and this is not real. You have 10 seconds to leave, or I will call the police and charge you all with trespassing." One of the guys said, "We're just doing our job, sir." But they quickly packed up and drove off. As I stood there with the permit in one hand and the bent gate in the other, I realized something very scary. They weren't acting anymore. They were putting up. The bulldozer came the next morning as planned. Before I could even see it, the sound shook the ground. When I was in the barn checking on one of my hens, the ground started to shake. Then I heard a loud beep that made my stomach twist. When I went outside, the feed bucket almost fell off. Like it belonged there. A huge yellow bulldozer was slowly making its way down my road. A flatbed truck pulled behind it with stacks of lumber and concrete blocks. In front of the group, a clean black SUV with Magnolia Bluffs HOA stickers on both sides led the way like the head marshal at a demolition party. I ran with my arms raised toward the road. The machine stopped moving. It wasn't the SUV. Jenny M always wears shoes, a blazer that is ironed to perfection, and sunglasses when she goes out at night. She looked at me like I was a hole in the ground. Before she shut the door, I was already yelling. "Now turn around," she said with a smile. "Good morning, Clint. Construction for the Magnolia Ranch Welcome Center begins today. We gave proper notice." I yelled, "You gave nothing. You don't own this land. If that bulldozer moves 1 inch, I swear I'll call the sheriff." I told him. "Please do. We've filed all the permits," she said in a sweet voice. I looked at the bulldozer driver, who was nervously watching from the cab. "You set that blade down, and I'll file criminal trespass charges so fast your keys will melt." The man turned off the car's engine without saying anything. Jenny sighed as if I were being a pain at a wedding. "Clint," she said, "you've been told. Your parcel falls under the HOA expansion overlay. The documents are filed, and the first phase of development includes your land as the central welcome point." I yelled, "My house is a welcome point." "The welcome center would replace the house. But don't worry," she said. "You'll be compensated generously." I moved up 2 steps. "Get off my land." Sheriff Daniels yelled as his car drove up the dirt road. I wasn't sure if I should feel fear or joy. He slowly walked outside and looked at me, the bulldozer, the lumber truck, and the HOA SUV. Daniels adjusted his belt and said, "Okay. Somebody better explain what the hell is going on here." Jenny stepped forward and spoke in a straight, cool voice. "Sheriff, we're proceeding under the authority of the annexation petition filed last month with county zoning. All construction is part of Phase 1 Magnolia Bluffs Ranch expansion." Sheriff Daniels gave a strange look. "Did the owner of this land sign anything?" "She did," Jenny said with confidence. "Do I look like a she to you?" I barked. The police officer looked at her. "You got paperwork?" He got a box from Jenny. He took it out and frowned. "This ain't Clint's signature, and this sure as hell ain't no legal authorization. This is a copy of a petition. Ain't even notarized." Jenny just shrugged. "It was processed." He looked at her for a moment and then at the workers. "You boys pack it up now." Jenny's smile broke for the first time. "Sheriff, this delay could cost our development team thousands." Daniels ended the conversation. "I don't care about that. Clint owns this land until I see a deed transfer or a signed sale deal." Jenny looked at me like I was a fly that she couldn't get rid of. After that, she turned around and walked back to her SUV without saying a word. The bulldozer roared to life, but this time it went backwards. The trucks came after. The whole group was gone in 5 minutes. Daniels shook his head no. "They're getting bolder, Clint." I gave a slow nod. "And more dangerous." He sighed. "Find a lawyer. A good one." My daughter Lucy came home from college that night. She saw the popular Facebook post that showed my house on a real estate agent's page with the words, "Secure your dream ranch lot before Phase 1 sells out." She was very angry. "Dad, you need to sue them. This is not allowed." "Trying," I said in a low voice. "They just keep showing up faster than I can stop them." We walked around the property together, and Lucy took pictures of everything. There were flyers stuck to the fence posts, spray-painted survey lines near the pond, and even the spot where the bulldozer had almost gone through the side field. We wrote a letter telling them to stop and printed wooden signs that said, "No trespassing. This land is not for sale" that night. Every 20 feet along the fence line, we nailed them up. Lucy also helped me set up a few motion detectors, which are just simple trail cameras that I hid in tree branches near the barn and front gate. When I checked the first camera feed at 2:14 a.m., I felt a little more in charge. Cars' headlights flashed. 3 guys in black hats and jackets got out of a pickup truck. They talked as they walked through the gate with flashlights. A clipboard was in one of their hands. They weren't just walking on my land. They were making plans. It was smaller than normal, but they put up new pink flags as survey markers. Then they disappeared like ghosts. Lucy put her hand over her mouth when she saw the video. "They're planning something, Dad." I gave a grim nod. "Yeah, and they don't want witnesses." We made the choice to step it up. The next day, Lucy helped me get in touch with Megan Harper, a local investigative reporter for the Austin Ledger. Megan was known for finding cases of land theft and shady HOA deals. She looked at us and said, "This story could make the front page if we can catch them in the act." I asked her to come to the house for the weekend. We hid her cams and changed the look of her car while we waited. There was nothing that night. The next night was the same. It did happen on the third night though. It wasn't just pole flags this time. Spray paint, bright red lines with the words "Bluffs Phase 1, Remove," were drawn on the wall of my barn. They were marking my buildings to be torn down. Even worse, the security camera caught two guys leaving the barn with plans in their hands. I gasped in shock as I watched the video and heard one of them say, "Building starts this week. Jen wants it to be done by Friday." Lucy looked at me and her voice was shaking. "They're going to destroy our home." I knew it was no longer just trespassing. It was war. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. It was like a brand in my mind when I saw those guys walk out of my barn with blueprints and spray paint all over my wall. As I sat on the porch with my shotgun across my lap, I stared out into the dark fields as if the enemy were about to charge out of the trees. By morning, I knew what I was going to do. It wasn't just about protecting my ranch anymore. It was about protecting my late wife's dream, my daughter's youth, and all the hard work I put into it over the years. It was ours, not theirs. Lucy called the reporter Megan first thing in the morning. "They put a mark on his barn," she said slowly. "They're coming to tear it down." Megan didn't think twice. "I'm on my way." By noon, she had hidden 2 dash cams in stopped cars nearby and set up a drone cam to watch from above the property line. Then she did something I didn't expect. She called the HOA office and said she was a buyer. As she spoke on the line, she said, "I'm very interested in the Magnolia Ranch lots. Will there be open house tours this week?" The woman on the other end, whose name was Sandra, answered happily, "Yes, we will be there from Friday to Sunday to look around. The barn's floor will be filled by next month, after it is cleared by Thursday. The view is beautiful." Megan looked at me. "They're talking about it like the land's already theirs." I made fists. "It ain't." Then I heard dirt being kicked up by tires on the gravel drive. There are 2 black cars. I grabbed my phone and began recording right away. One man got out and looked around like he was checking out a job spot. The other person started taking out what looked like measure tools and a box of spray paint cans. It didn't look like they were workers. It looked like they were a wrecking crew. I skipped it. I went up to the recording and told it, "You are on private property. Leave now." The taller one gave a smile. "This is lot 37B, sir. We're here to mark up before the test. You should back off." I put my phone up. "They are filming you. This is my land, and this barn is my barn. If you spray one more thing on it, I'll call the police again. And this time I'll have the media on my side to find out what you did." The second man thought about it. "Wait, are you Clint Mitchell?" "Yes, I am," I replied with confidence. He looked at his friend. "Dude, this is the person. This land wasn't given to them officially. We need not be here." The tall guy just shrugged though. "Wendy told me to do it anyway." That's when Megan came out with her camera. "Hi there. Welcome to the Austin Ledger. My name is Megan Harper. Would you like to be recorded before you are named in a criminal trespass report?" They stopped moving like statues, and then ran away with spray paint still in their hands. We videotaped the whole thing. Megan looked at me. "You're going to need a good lawyer, but with this footage, you're about to blow the lid off Magnolia Bluffs." The next few days were full of things going on. Megan wrote the story on Tuesday, which was called Exclusive. HOA accused of land theft and forgery in shocking ranch scandal. The story had screenshots of the fake papers, pictures of the people who were breaking the law, and a video of the men admitting that Jenny had ordered the marking, even though she knew the land wasn't legally hers. It quickly went viral on Facebook, Reddit, and local news sites in just a few hours. Officially, the sheriff's office said they had started a criminal probe. The HOA didn't stop though. Lucy ran into the barn on Wednesday morning and yelled, "Dad, they sent a crew again." When I ran outside, I saw a white pickup truck in the far part of the field. This time, they were trying to block off part of my land by rolling up orange construction fencing along the tree line, as if it were theirs. I had helped this time though. Paul was already there. He walked up to them with a bright red folder and his own cell phone. He yelled, "You boys see this? That is a certified record from Travis County that shows Clint Mitchell owns the whole property. It is against the law to even sneeze on that fence." The workers looked lost as they looked back and forth between Paul and the papers. Paul then said something that worked great. "By the way, there's a drone watching you from above. Your picture is likely already on a news feed." That was it. They got their stuff together and drove off. Lucy gave Paul a tight hug. "You're a lifesaver." We all knew it was only for a short time though. Things went from bad to worse the next day. A package showed up in my mailbox. There is no return address. There was a paper folder inside. It was just a photocopy of a court document that said, "Notice of pending property lien." There was no letter or name on it. Magnolia Bluffs HOA versus Clint Mitchell. My face was losing blood. So they could put a lien on my land. They said I owed HOA back dues for services I never received and a membership I never signed up for. They said I was breaking the rules of the community by getting in the way of HOA growth plans, and that I owed them $84,000. The folder was taken from me by Lucy. This is crazy. They want to put us out of business so they can take the land. I called Sheriff Daniels right away. Within an hour, he came over and looked over the papers. It looks like they sent this to a private debt collection agency that works with the HOA. It's not clean. But if you don't go to court, they'll get a judge to rule in their favor anyway. Lucy said, "How fast can we fight it?" He looked sad. "You need a lawyer. A real pit bull, or they'll kill you with paper." I looked out at my field, which I had mowed, tilled, fertilized, and walked every morning for 15 years. I said, "They can't take this from us," and I meant it. Megan showed up with a treat the next morning. "I found her," she smiled. "The lawyer you need." The name of the tough-as-nails property rights lawyer was Abigail Rohr. She made news years ago when she helped a farmer fight off a multimillion-dollar HOA that wanted to use his orchard as a park. Abigail looked over the fake signature, the lien letter, the video from the drone, and the interviews we had taped. "This is one of the most blatant land grabs I've ever seen," she noted. "We'll file a motion to dismiss the lien by Friday and serve them with a cease and desist of our own. If we want to bury them for good, we'll need more than just paperwork," she said. "We need proof of purpose." Lucy leaned in. "What kind of proof? Emails? Recording your voice? Internal papers that got out? Something that shows Jenny and the HOA are moving forward even though they know this land isn't theirs." Paul hit his fists together. "I might know where to find that." Everyone looked at him. The HOA clubhouse has a security guard who used to be in the army. We were in Afghanistan together. My name is Ray Dobson. He also doesn't like what they're doing. Abigail had a smile. Then it's time we paid Mr. Dobson a visit. My phone rang just as we were making a plan to find out what the HOA's dirty secrets were. It came straight from the camera on the drone. I just saw a big group come back into my land. But this time, they had hard hats on and jackhammers in their hands. When the drone camera sent the warning, my heart skipped a beat. I quickly went inside and turned on my laptop's live feed. At least a dozen men wearing hard hats, safety vests, and steel-toed boots were seen on the screen going across my field to get to the barn. They had toolboxes, jackhammers, and even a movable cement mixer with them. Behind them, a white van was unloading big pieces of cement and building tape. They weren't just breaking the law. They were getting ready to build. I yelled for Lucy and Paul while holding onto my keys. They're back, and this time, they brought construction crews. Paul jumped up so quickly that his coffee mug fell over. You kidding me? Nope, I replied. And they're heading straight for the barn. I'll call Megan, Lucy said. Get the police chief. The drone will now follow them. We jumped in Paul's truck and sped down the dirt road, leaving a cloud of dust behind us that looked like smoke. When we got to the ranch, we saw 15 guys setting up tools, measuring land, and drawing lines across my pasture. One guy was so bold as to set up a small lunch area under the oak tree with a cooler and a folding table. It felt like them coming in. What the hell are you doing on my property? I yelled as I jumped out of the truck and ran right toward the man with the clipboard. He didn't move. Thank you, sir. I work for Northridge Construction. Magnolia Bluffs HOA hired us to start the first step. We've been told to level the barn and prepare the ground for the Welcome Center car lot. You may not touch that barn. I yelled. He gave me another pass with the same fake signature and HOA letterhead. He looked at me blankly. This time though it said approved fast track code A1 on it. I had it in my hands when Paul grabbed it and growled. Fast track this, you snake. The man told his men what to do, and 2 of them went straight for the barn with jackhammers. I ran ahead and put my arms out in front of the door. You want to touch this barn, you'll have to go through me. After some thought, one of the workers sent a radio message to someone. After 10 seconds, a black SUV pulled up, and Jenny M walked out with 2 guys in suits standing on either side of her. She told him in a cool voice, "You're making this harder than it needs to be. The law gives us the right to build on this land." No, you don't. I lost it. You're forging signatures, trespassing, threatening livelihoods. We filed a lien, she said. And unless you pay the balance, the land defaults. That lien is being challenged in court. Lucy yelled and jumped out of Paul's truck while holding up her phone to record everything. Jen looked at her. Young lady, put that away. Lucy yelled, Nope. This is happening now on Facebook. Tell 900 people hello. Jenny's smile went away. Paul moved forward. If any of you guys put a scratch on this property, you're all going down for criminal destruction. Jenny looked angry at Clint and said, You're playing a losing game. I will never forget what she said. You can't spend more than us. You cannot ban us. Give up now. I smiled and told her, Lady, I'm a veteran. I've been in real wars. This is just a test. It was then that Sheriff Daniels pulled up again, this time with flashing lights. He yelled, All right. Get off the land unless your name is Clint Mitchell. I only want to ask once. Daniels put up his hand when Jenny tried to speak. The state attorney's office just called me. A formal review has been started. If you even touch that barn, I'll pull you in myself. Jenny shut her mouth for good. The building workers got cold. Then, one by one, like beaten ants, they started getting their tools together and making their way back to their trucks. Lucy used her phone to get a closer look at Jenny's face. Smile for the internet. Jenny turned around and drove off in her SUV without saying a word. Paul told me, that was too close. I asked, too close? They were seconds from turning our life into rubble. Megan brought good news that night. She smiled and said, Ray came through. We got internal emails from the HOA system, leaked from his access as clubhouse security. She showed prints of emails Jenny had sent to another board member. Subject, Phase 1, keep going. We'll just tell the press he's being tough. The spot will be ready and zoned by the time the courts weigh in. It's ours once it's paved. Don't worry about Clint Mitchell, said. Another email. It will be too late to check the signature thing. Lucy let out a gasp. That's it. We need that. Megan said, yes. And it gets better. She watched a video that Ray had sent her. It was taped from inside the HOA clubhouse. She was talking to a guy with his hair pulled back at the table while her arms were crossed. He was dressed in a suit and was as tense as a snake in a tie. Ray had called him Calvin RHA, which is a name for an attorney. The video made it clear that Jenny was mad. "He won't give up," she hissed. "He's got the media, drones, lawyers, and a daughter who won't shut up on social media." Calvin got closer. "Then we push harder. We file a new lien claim, a nuisance violation, and we get the police to write tickets. He'll have to sell or walk away if we bury him in paper." Jenny made a face. "The barn's coming down one way or another." Calvin gave a grin. "Accidents happen on remote properties, especially old barns." Lucy let out a gasp. Paul stood up and clenched his hands. "They're going to burn it down or stage a collapse." She spoke in a low, sharp voice. "This is the smoking gun. The intent to bother, the intent to lie, and the intent to force the property handover. Everything is here." Megan smiled. "Looks like Magnolia Bluffs is about to have the biggest scandal in HOA history. We gave Sheriff Daniels everything the next morning, and he said he would take it straight to the district attorney. But the story went viral online before that could happen." Megan put out the video with the title, "HOA Caught Trying to Illegally Take Ranch Property." A few hours later, big news networks got in touch. On HOA boards, angry members were calling for Jenny to step down. But that's when the last blow hit. A letter from Magnolia Bluffs Homeowners Association, HOA, was sent to every home in the neighborhood. It said, "Due to complications surrounding the Phase 1 ranch expansion, development will be paused until legal matters are resolved." Though it wasn't a win yet, it was the first step back. On that night, we had a party with a small fire. Lucy grilled some marshmallows. It was Paul who took out his guitar. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in weeks. However, Abigail told us, "Don't take it easy too soon. We're almost there, but when people are anxious and backed up, they do dangerous things." She was right too. I heard a big bang at the front of the house when I woke up the next morning. I ran to the door with my shotgun in my hand. There it was. My front porch was broken. An old heavy wooden post had been thrown into it and broke through the middle. One word was carved into the wood: "Leave." I looked at the broken porch post with the word "Leave" cut into it. It looked like a scary movie warning. I didn't know how clenched my hands were around the gun until Lucy came up behind me and lightly touched my arm. She whispered, "Dad," her eyes wide with fear. Who would do this? Soon after, Paul came around the turn with his jaw clenched and his eyes darting around the trees. "It's them. It needs to be. They've lost power and are now trying to scare you away." I got on my knees to look at the post. There were nails and splinters all over it. It looked like someone had yanked it off of one of my old field fences and thrown it hard into the porch. This wasn't just damage. It was a threat. I looked at the footage from the drone cam again. At 3:07 a.m., a person in a hood walked up the dirt drive while pulling the post behind them. The video was fuzzy, but the person in it looked tall and strong, and they moved like they'd done this before. Not long after I called, Sheriff Daniels showed up. His face got darker as he looked at the harm and the video. His words were, "This is criminal intimidation. I've got no doubt this is related to the HOA mess, but unless we catch them in the act or ID the guy clearly, it'll be hard to pin." Lucy spoke up. "We can't let them scare us away." The sheriff said, "Yes. You're not by yourself. There are people watching right now, but just in case, I'm going to park a cruiser near your place every night from now on." Things got tense over the next few days. No building workers showed up. There are no real estate agents. Not even one more fake flyer. It was almost too quiet. She also filed a move to dismiss the fake lien and started putting together a full civil case at the same time. The news sites loved the HOA emails and videos that were leaked. Members of the HOA board started to quit one by one. Jenny, on the other hand, refused to step down. Abigail told us, "Desperate people do desperate things." We were all having dinner in the barn, which had become our unofficial war room, on the fourth night after what happened on the porch. Megan walked in with a USB drive. She opened her eyes wide and said, "You're not going to believe what Ray just gave me." It was plugged into my PC by her. When I opened the file, I saw blurry security video from the conference room in the HOA clubhouse. She was talking to a guy with his hair pulled back at the table while her arms were crossed. He was dressed in a suit and was as tense as a snake in a tie. Ray had called him Calvin RHA, the lawyer. The video made it clear that Jenny was mad. "He won't give up," she hissed. "He's got the media, drones, lawyers, and a daughter who won't shut up on social media." Calvin got closer. "Then we push harder. We file a new lien claim, a nuisance violation, and we get the police to write tickets. He'll have to sell or walk away if we bury him in paper." Jenny made a face. "The barn's coming down one way or another." Calvin gave a grin. "Accidents happen on remote properties, especially old barns." Lucy let out a gasp. Paul stood up and clenched his hands. "They're going to burn it down or stage a collapse." She spoke in a low, sharp voice. "This is the smoking gun. The intent to bother, the intent to lie, and the intent to force the property handover. Everything is here." Megan smiled. "Looks like Magnolia Bluffs is about to have the biggest scandal in HOA history." We gave Sheriff Daniels everything the next morning, and he said he would take it straight to the district attorney. But the story went viral online before that could happen. Megan put up the video with the title, "Caught on Tape. HOA Leader Planning to Steal a Veteran's Property and Force a Sale," and the subtitle, "HOA Caught Trying to Seize Ranch Property Illegally." A lot of people read this story in less than 2 hours. The story made national news, and soon, support came in from all over the country for our ranch on Facebook. Veterans groups, groups that fight for property rights, and even former HOA members from other states told us their terrible stories and promised to stand with us. "You don't have to fight this alone, we're coming," stood out. In the late afternoon, a group of trucks, bikes, and SUVs came into town. At least 30 people showed up at the ranch gate. Some were strangers who had read about the story online, while others were neighbors, local farmers, and old Army friends of mine. "With hats on, we're ready to help," an Austin woman told them. "We're not going to let them do this to you. You stood your ground, now we're here to help you hold it." Paul wiped away a tear. Someone said, "Let's build a fence." In fact, that's what we did. My ranch had a new steel gate, new "No Trespassing" signs on every corner, and trail cams in every tree by the time the sun went down. But just as I thought we had one, a strange car pulled up on the dirt road. The HOA wasn't to blame. Not a real estate agent. I didn't recognize the black government car that it was. A man in a dark suit came out. He calmly walked up to me with a thin folder in his hand. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm from the Bureau of Land Zoning and Urban Development." It broke my heart. A letter from the government was inside the folder. The town of Magnolia Bluffs had asked the federal government for an easement to take my land for public recreation, uses related to community development. Lucy moved forward. "What does that mean?" We were all frozen when the man answered. "It means the HOA has taken their battle to Washington, and they just might win." The group was covered in silence like a thick blanket. He stood there quietly with the thin federal folder in his hand, as if it didn't weigh anything. For me, though, it was like being hit in the chest by a building bomb. "Eminent domain?" I spoke slowly, as if I were tasting poison. "They're trying to use federal law to steal my land?" He gave a cold but professional nod. "Private property can be taken over for public use if it meets certain criteria for community benefit under Title 42, Section 4651. Magnolia Bluffs HOA says your land is needed for a leisure green space. The request has not yet been approved. A clubhouse is what they want to build. This has nothing to do with public recreation." Lucy yelled. "Your lawyer will have a chance to file opposition," the agent said. "He wasn't done yet, though. I'm here to deliver official notice of the filing." Paul moved forward. "You telling me the government's going to help a crooked HOA steal a veteran's ranch?" The guy did not answer. He turned around, walked to his car, and drove off without saying anything else. I sat at the workbench in the barn with my hands over my head. Lucy walked back and forth like a tiger in a cage. "Dad, they can't win. It's no longer just about us. They've tried this with a lot of people." Megan said, "Yes. There is a lot of media coverage, but this is new ground. They have a lot of power at the government level. It won't just be about news. Proof is needed. The lawyer for us, Abigail, was already on her laptop. The filing hasn't been finalized yet, which is good news. We can say no. To get to this point, we have 72 hours to show proof that the HOA knowingly committed theft. She pointed her screen at me. We need to show 3 things. The signature they used to get permission from the community was fake. The land is not in any HOA zoned area. And the HOA leaders meant to trick the community. That means putting Jenny M under oath or getting her to admit it. Paul smiled. Or get someone on the inside to flip. I finally called Ray Dobson that night, after putting it off for a long time, while sitting under the porch light. After one ring, he picked up. Clint, he called. I was wondering when you'd call me directly. I need more, I said. Emails, calls, paperwork, anything that proves Jenny knew this was fraud. He was quiet for a while. She's scared now. Since your video went public, she has been using a burner phone and keeping her files safe in a coded safe. But I know where the safe is, he said. With time running out, Lucy and I made a plan the next day and drove to the Magnolia Bluffs HOA Center to get a brochure for the new ranch lots. Ray planned to turn off the front cams and distract the front desk worker, while Lucy waited in her car, outside with a backup phone, ready to livestream everything if needed. Ray let me into the building through a side door. We made it to Jenny's office. A fake flower and air freshener smells like it. He showed her a cabinet behind her desk with a digital lock on the bottom door. The secret word is her dog's birthday. It's 6:15. I pressed it in. The door opened with a click. It had a portable speech recorder, stacks of files with labels, and a flash drive that said, MB Phase 1 Confidential. Ray said in a whisper, "Take pictures. Do not take anything away." I took out my phone and took pictures of everything. Jenny's signature is on emails that approve requests to add land, internal notes that suggest paying off county officials, and a list of properties that are considered a nuisance and are marked for strategic foreclosure pressure. Jenny wrote and never sent a letter called, "Just get rid of Clint Mitchell already." It was the most damning proof. I also copied the voice recorder. The voice of her said, "Once the lien is paid off or he gives up, we'll tear down the barn. It won't matter to anyone. One man is alone on his sad old ranch. We own the view after it's gone." When I showed Abigail everything back at the house, her eyes lit up. This is it. This is the last piece of the puzzle. Along with our photos, transcripts, drone videos, and the leaked HOA papers, she worked all night to write the opposition brief. Early in the morning, she turned it in to the local court and the Bureau of Land Zoning with the note, "Urgent request for immediate injunction." We then had to wait. The unimaginable took place that same afternoon. Jenny M. was caught and charged with crimes like forgery, criminal trespass, and planning to commit fraud. The local news showed her being led out of the HOA building while she was handcuffed. It was beautiful. But the most important part happened the next day at a news conference that was shown on TV. A representative from the Bureau of Land Zoning stood behind a podium and said, "The eminent domain request submitted by Magnolia Bluffs HOA has been denied due to the review of fraudulent documentation. In addition, government investigators will be checking their own operations from the inside." That night, I went back out on my porch and looked out over my land. My barn was still there. The gate to my house was locked. It was quiet for the first time in weeks. Lucy came up to me. "We did it, Dad." I smiled. "Nope, we didn't. It was something everyone did. And even those strangers from the internet who spoke out, because they knew something was wrong and wouldn't stand for it. The trouble began when someone hammered a sign into my field without my permission. It almost ended with bulldozers, plans, and a life being stolen. It didn't though. Because truth backed by community is sometimes stronger than money and power. Let's hear from everyone watching. What would you do if someone tried to sell your land without your rights? Fill out the form below and tell us where you're watching from. Don't mess with an old man on his own land, especially if he has a daughter, a drone, and a barn full of memories.